Okay, so let's switch now from healthcare discussion to pension benefit discussion. Big topic for our members, of course. We did get a raise last session for about 200,000 folks, first raise in 12 years. There are another 100+ thousand folks that didn't get the increase, and we came into this session knowing a few things more than what we may have anticipated. So, Ronnie, let's kind of start from the beginning and talk about the earnings for the retirement system and how they did last year.
When we went into the session, the last fiscal year, the teacher retirement system earned over $19 billion. They have to earn 8% just to meet their actuarial assumptions. So they had a huge income above that amount. They also booked some liabilities for increased mortality assumption, knowing their members are living longer, so they ate up part of the gain. But going into the session, we knew they had a good year, but we still knew we were close to the 30-year funding period. And we knew we wouldn't get an update until February 28th when the legislature gets new numbers. And that was the basis for all the bills. So when the numbers came out first part of March, it was still clear there were some benefits that could be enhanced. There were options such as a 13th check for everybody. We knew there could be some cost of living adjustments made, but we didn't know how far it could go, whether it could get to current or how far it would go. So, but we wouldn't know any of that information until there were bills filed and there were actuarial fiscal notes done to it. So that was kind of the lay of the land when we went in. We knew this was an opportunity. I also believe, though, that the opportunity was short-lived, because we know that the market at some point is not going to keep going up. It's going to go down. We also know that TRS is doing experience days. So this session really was somewhat opportunistic to help give more of our members a benefit increase.
Yeah. So it's a lot of money for us to think about. So just keeping in mind that our pension fund alone is a total of about $130 billion plus dollars. And in 1 year, TRS earned over $19 billion in their investments. So great job by the TRS investment team. They always do a good job, but they had an exceptionally good year this year. And we were coming into this legislative session, and Bill, I know it's actually state statutory requirement that TRS does what we call the February 28th valuation. And that's the snapshot that the legislature uses to make decisions about how are they going to respond to legislation that may affect the pension system. And prior to that, we had some members introduce bills, and Ronnie mentioned some of the concepts that were introduced, but can you tell us a little bit about some of the bills that were introduced?
We had some bills introduced after that information came in that would allow for up to a 13 check for everyone. There was a bill introduced to allow for like a CPI catch-up for those people that didn't get the CPI last time. I looked at it as let's finish the job, let's finish the mission. And so we had some bills that were presented. We had a lot of support for that in the House. And Tim, to be perfectly honest, the chairman of the Pensions Committee and those bills weren't heard till the last of the session. And they did get a hearing, but they didn't get passed out of the Pensions Committee. And that was a real disappointment to me, that it could have happened, but it didn't happen.
Well, the only thing that really did happen on the House side with pension legislation is that, as you said, the chairman of the House Pensions Committee did have a day where they went through almost all of the bills that were introduced that would have given a benefit increase if they had passed. So I think we called that the cost of living increase day. But there was a day that the committee had a hearing about all those bills. And I'm going to have all of the list of those bills placed in this video so that our members can see all of the folks who sponsored a bill and authored a bill that would have given a retiree something. But it was late in session. And so what we learned from anything that's done late in session is that it may not be that high of our priority. And I think that we came into this legislative session knowing that legislature was fairly comfortable with the idea that TRS-Care was a high priority, but a lot of people thought that we gave the raise to our folks and everybody got the raise. And I think there was a lot of sentiment to that. And so even as you and your team and Ronnie and Vicki Truitt and I, we all worked the issue, we weren't making very much headway with the decision makers, particularly, as you said, the chairman of the House Pensions Committee and then the chair of the State Affairs Committee, when it came to actually having a day. You know, the Senate, I think you mentioned that there was a hearing in the House for a number of bills, but did we actually even have a hearing in the Senate on any bill?
No, we did not.
So no hearing at all in the Senate State Affairs Committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction for the teacher retirement system and for benefit increases. And so while there was a lot of support for helping us on TRS-Care, there was this sort of pushback that we kept feeling all session as we try to advance these bills. So I know that when we think about where do we go from here, and Ronnie had mentioned before that eventually the markets are going to go down. We had the opportunity. We didn't have a friendly legislative effort by the chairs of the committees that would have allowed the bills to move ahead. We're not going to stop trying to get our retirees an increase. Isn't that right, Bill?
Absolutely, and we didn't stop, Tim. We early on, when we saw that opportunity to address that issue, the people that didn't get the raise the last time, we did put it out there and did work that. We didn't come in at the last minute and say, let's do it. We did it early on to push those bills to get a hearing. The hearing didn't come till the last minute. Then the bills didn't get passed out. But it wasn't because TRTA didn't give that effort. So, yes, the TRTA, the Legislative Committee, will push very hard to address those issues in the next session. I think that's extremely important.
Well, I guess from our perspective in working the issue, we were a little bit handicapped because our number one priority was clearly getting funding for TRS-Care. And so the funding for TRS-Care didn't come about till very late in the session. So we had to make sure we didn't jeopardize funding for care while we were working for trying to get the cost of living adjustment. So that made it more difficult, but we worked it all the way to the end trying to work with members, and we will continue to work in the future. We'll just have to see what the markets do and our opportunities in the future.
No, I think that's a great point that Ronnie raises, is that the legislative session, nothing happens all at once. It's this process from day one until day 140. You've got to work the issues, and as Ronnie said, at stake was $768 million for our health insurance, and we were balancing our efforts on the healthcare funding at the same time that we were pushing the issue of giving our retirees an increase. And it's not just the Retired Teachers Association that is doing the advocacy on issues relating to pension funds. There are a lot of groups that like to help us. We have a lot of support from groups like ATPE and TCTA and TSTA and the Federation of Teachers and the administrator groups. We have a lot of support from groups that are like-minded, that want to try and help protect the teacher retirement system. And we received a lot of support from those groups this session. But there are a lot of other groups that are extremely powerful in this legislative process that have a complete opposite message. And they meet with legislators just like we do. And Bill, I know they influence those members, and the members may not completely agree with everything they say, but there are parts of it that they may agree with, or they may be getting a scorecard against that legislator if they take a certain position. And so all of our efforts come into, how are other groups going to anti-message what we are trying to message? Isn't that right?
You bet. Those groups are out there. Their mission is to do away maybe with public pensions, period. Certainly health care, was a target. They're well funded. They're very loud, have a very loud voice. But Tim, I'm just going to say that TRTA, retirees underestimate their loud voice. They have a loud voice. They need to make it known. It is obvious that the legislature has their ear, and we wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we've gotten accomplished. We just can't let our guard down. It's there.
Yeah. I'll wrap this kind of conversation up by saying that one senator said to me late in session, we know that there were things that we probably could have done more to help, and maybe we should have. And and we consider TRTA to be an honest broker in how we work with the legislature. And there are times that we're going to say, great job, that a boy, you got it done, we really appreciate it. But there are other times we have to say, look, we missed an opportunity here. And I think a lot of that is how you deliver that message. And nobody can not respect you for the positions that you have in trying to help the people that you represent. So let's talk about one other bill that passed, and that was House Bill 2168. 2168 is by Representative Sergio Munoz. This is one of those bills that started locally. A number of retirees were saying that maybe because of some bank situations, some issues with the money being just filtered through direct deposit, the teacher retirement system pays an annuity for 1 month when the month is over on the first day of the following month. Sometimes the first day of the following month falls on a weekend or a holiday, and it could be several days before retirees actually see their annuity payments fund into their bank account. And so Representative Munoz filed a bill, and Ronnie, the bill technically does what?
Basically, it requires teacher retirement system to pay the members on the last working day of the month instead of the first working day of the next month. So basically means that our retirees will get their money at least a day earlier, or some months it's 3 or 4 days earlier. For example, this calendar year, December 31st is on a Thursday. So when this bill goes into effect, our members will actually get their check on Thursday, December 31st. Without this bill, the first was a Friday, which was a holiday. Second and third were weekend. They would not have got their check till the 4th. So there was a 5-day lag. So this bill gives everybody their money a little bit earlier. In some months it's a day or two, so it could be 4 or 5 days.
So that's a great bill for a lot of our retirees who, unfortunately, our retirees don't get Social Security. Our retirements, as Ronnie said earlier, the average retirement is $2,000 a month or less. And so some of our folks, want to see their annuity get funded on the first day possible. And so waiting, several days into the following month could have created some problems with them being able to meet the expectations that they have. Isn't that right, Bill?
Absolutely. I know some retirees, Tim, whose pensions are not wonderful, not large amounts, but they really do. They want their money in their bank accounts to pay their bills on time, and some of them have told me that if they don't pay those bills on time, there's a penalty in there, which costs them more money in the long haul. So I think when you look at it like that, it really helps a segment of the population that really needs that kind of help, and it really doesn't cost any more to do that. And I'm glad that was able to happen. And the neat thing about it, if there is, the representative heard from local constituents that said this was a problem for me. And so, again, I just want to reinforce how important it is for our members to talk to their legislators on key issues that impact them.
Yeah. I know that this is actually going to mean that retirees will, in the time span of a 12-month period, Ronnie, they're actually going to get 13 annuity payments. It's not a 13th check. It's still money they were owed. It's not like it was an increase in benefit. But it does mean that you're going to have in a calendar year period of time 13 payments as the state catches up. And it's a one-time situation. There may be a little bit of a tax differential that people might want to look into. Of course, we don't know everybody's circumstances, but maybe something that people want to just be aware of.
Right. They just have to be aware of when they get their payment in December, it'll actually be in December instead of January, so they get an extra payment. If their withholdings are normal and reasonable and they're not on the borderline on the tax break, it should have virtually no impact. If they're on the borderline or their withholdings aren't sufficient, they may have some tax issues. But this is a one-time deal, and from now on, they'll get regular 12-month payments, and it shouldn't be an issue.